Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. I am back again with another cassette episode, another cassette tape episode of One Track Record. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Shayna. And if you're new and just happen to stumble upon this for the first time, welcome. If you don't mind, if you enjoy the content for today, please hit the like button. Okay. If you don't, that's cool too. You can hit the dislike. But if you like what is going on in today's content, hit subscribe, all notifications, gotta hit that bell, right? So that you can constantly be in the loop of when I drop bonus content such as this. Also, for when I am announcing things within the community feed, that's pretty important because there's constant updates being made because life is lifing, right? If it's lifing for me, I know it's lifing for everyone else because outside is kind of crazy right now. But this channel is simply just a reminder to take it easy, take a breath, and it's an open dialogue. I am not a licensed therapist or clinical psychologist or any of that, but I do a fair ton of research, and the best research really is also from life experience, right? And I like the way things are done here simply because I don't feel like I'm lecturing anybody. I feel like I'm always having an open dialogue amongst family. So if you'd like to be part of the family, just subscribe. You're a track star. It's okay. We're all ripping and running through our own race. We're fixing our cassette tapes with pencils. We're trying to use the alcohol pads to rub out the scratches on our CDs. It's good. It's okay. You're loved. You're appreciated. Welcome. Now, if you're listening to this right now, you may already know that cassette tape episodes are bonus content, but depending on which side you're listening to, specifies gender. So today you will be listening to the Unhealed Trauma cassette tape side A for the women. Men, I didn't forget about you. I'm working on something for you too. It's almost there. But as the good saying goes, ladies first. I mean, ladies, you already know we spoke about this, right? Where you're gonna listen to the men tape anyway. Because we're nosy. Yes, we're nosy. And okay, that's okay. That's okay in this case of us being nosy. But if there's any men on here today in the live chat or just afterwards in the replay in the comments, it's okay for you to stay. Maybe this is meant for you to hear so that you can give it to someone else who may need it. But I only have one rule, and ladies, you already know the rule. If you are a man on the cassette tape side A and you want to be in the live chat or the comments, please be respectful. Okay? No intimidating the women, no heckling, none of that. That's the only rule. Now, so Shayna, why are you talking about the unhealed trauma? I thought we already went through everything with the inner child, all that, the self-love, the self-reflection, everything that was spoken about within your CD episodes. So why are you making a cassette tape side A and side B about unhealed trauma if we spent weeks on The Little Prince and all of that, right? Well, let me tell you why. As of lately, I've been noticing a pattern with a particular person, and the majority of you who know me through someone else's channel, right? Who I won't name because you probably know them already. But there's a particular person I have come across that has rubbed me the wrong way and has rubbed several people the wrong way, to which they are now telling me about said person. And at first, the old, triggered, unhealed version of Shayna wanted to seek vengeance. But as I am blossoming into a new era, God legit took off his sandal that he walked the streets of Damascus. He slapped me on the back of my neck and said, "Just sit down." And I said, "Okay, you didn't have to hit me with your chancla though. All right, like it hurt. Why you do that?" So I decided to listen to Jesus, and I decided to pray for this person. This person no longer is welcome per se in my day-to-day life. I still have love for them from a distance, and I know they still watch me from a distance, and that's okay. But what's not okay is how we go about treating people, and it offends and not taking accountability. So, knowing that how people treat you really is a reflection of how they see themselves is something that only a healing person can see and feel. No one's perfect. No one's going to leave this earth perfect. But the more you strive towards perfection the way God ordained you to, in layman terms, you're going to piss off some people. You're going to piss off a lot of people who are not willing to be about what you're about and stand on business. Amen. So let's get into what I have for today, the unhealed trauma. Bear with me, folks. So, what are the two biggest signs, especially as women, we face when it comes to dealing with people with unhealed trauma and them not being the same level as far as self-love as you? What does that look like? What does that manifest as? So, me personally, in my experience, I'm 31 now. This is what I get from a lot of women that's so commonplace, but nobody really is open to speaking about it in depth. Okay. But here it is: jealousy and envy. It really is sad that I'd have to even speak about something like this at my grown age. But here we are, because we got to fix. We got to fix. We got to fix. Okay. So I mentioned jealousy because people may hate or envy you for not feeling emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically superior over you when they struggle with their own self esteem or personal triggers that usually stem from childhood. Now, we spoke about in the story of the little prince, right? Him navigating not through just planet Earth, but through the asteroids, having a spiritual awakening, meeting different people other than him who think different, who live different, who believe different things, right? But he still had enough sense to develop himself spiritually and not judge people. Now, the Bible, as you know, speaks about righteous judgment, to hold people up to a certain standard, not necessarily the judge to judge them in the same way God would, but to judge them based off godly principles, right? So when people see you confidently living your life and they're not confident, it will offend them. But it's also your responsibility to know that, one, that's not your problem, and two, that doesn't make you arrogant, because that's another tactic. People shame you into not wanting you to embrace who you are. They try to tell people who are overly confident in who they are and that they appreciate themselves, they can be by themselves, they don't need to be in the in crowd. They want to isolate them, make them feel bad. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be confident. You can be too confident and be arrogant, but that's another topic for another day. If you want me to talk about that, you can place that in the comments and we can have a discussion about that as well. Now, it may not even be you that they hate, but what you represent that they feel that they can't have. So sometimes you in life as a woman may be facing problems with other women, not even because of what you personally do, but what you represent. If you're that person, let's say in the office, who is always cheery, always in a good mood, always saying good morning, you're going to rub people the wrong way who at home, maybe they don't have a voice. Maybe their husband never lets them speak. Maybe their children never obey them. They're constantly in trouble. They don't have any type of control of a situation. They always feel like they have to be in control. So they're a negative Nancy. And because they can't control you or make you upset or miserable as they are, then they hate you for that because you represent an obstacle in their life, in their perspective. But really, you're just doing your own thing. You're in your own lane. And somehow, again, that's going to piss people off who are not on the same wavelength as you. So, what does that lead to when people may be jealous of you or envious of you, but they don't necessarily show you negativity? What is the positive, the fake positive side of being envious or jealous? In my opinion, it may lead to things like imitation. When people who are jealous of you or are envious, they may show it indirectly by playing close to you, but will flatter you by trying to copy and paste your mannerisms, your diction or word choice, your cadence or the flow in which you live your life or speak, etc. Boy, this is a lot to take in. I know. I know. But in childhood, I don't know about anybody else, but I can speak for me. There have been times where I didn't want to come to terms with the fact that somebody may or may not be envious or jealous. Sometimes people got to just spill it out for you because they see things you don't. So it could be your other friends, it could be your parents, it could be your friends' parents, it could be anybody least expecting. And they say, "Hey, Shayna, I noticed that this particular person decided to dress a lot like you, or they decided to use a lot of the slang terms and stuff that you use, but I heard you use it first." Little things. And at first you're just like, well, if this person's cool with me, they never outwardly had a problem with me. I guess they've just been around me a lot. It's flattering, right? But you have to look at the reasons why they may be doing something like that. So, in my experience, here it is. They do this in hopes that those around you who love you for you will love them because of how you are. And this, in my opinion, also is a big sign of unhealed trauma when you're constantly seeking approval for fear of abandonment. Some people actually believe, as crazy as it sounds saying this out loud, some people actually believe that it's okay to live a life other than what they are intended to live in hopes that they will be liked better, or maybe they'd be more relatable, not knowing you just took basically a a secondhand job for the rest of your life. You're really gonna work your 9 to 5 and work this fake persona for the rest of your life. Isn't it just easier if you just be yourself and find people that like you for you? You're stressing yourself out for why? For why? Right? You would think. But unfortunately, not everybody is able to have that self reflection to say, hey, there's a problem here. Enough people may have called me out for something, or simply, hey, something doesn't feel right. Maybe I should take some time out to myself to figure out what it is. But what ends up happening to people who constantly may indulge in such behavior, there's something else that may happen. If that doesn't work, where they try to imitate the person they secretly admire, but also hate via jealousy or envy, they may resort to something called relational aggression. So, what is relational aggression? Relational aggression is a tactic used by triggered jealous people to ruin your public image to those who are in favor of you. And they may also rally people against you, which is the purpose of doing so is to really take away your covering, is what I like to call it, or to take away your influence. Because if people no longer find you influential in a social setting, it's easier for people who are envious or jealous of you to then attack you. Think of Caesar and Brutus. You get enough people to conspire against you, and then that jealous or envious person is the one that ends up stabbing you in your back, which is the same as what? The Jesus story. They all loved him, right? They all were throwing palm branches, and a week later, they slapped my homeboy on a tree. But this is how Satan likes to get a hold of people that he despises through he uses avenues such as jealousy and being envious as a way to combat people or children of God. It's sick. So, how do you avoid or prevent being a jealous, envious, or unhealed person? Or how do you really avoid or prevent being around one? Well, you have to identify their triggers and hold them accountable. You got to stand on business. Okay? So, how do you stand on business? All right. Well, I kind of comprised my own list, and feel free to chime in the live section or the comment section. Number 1, be careful of the person who has a different set of rules for their behavior than yours. And here's an example of this. I'm going to hold myself accountable on this live right now and admit that in previous months, I have fell victim to gossiping. It's not gossip if you talk about someone in a sense of being concerned and then praying for them afterwards. Prayer stops a lot of avenues for gossip. Yes, it does. When you have somebody in your life that constantly gossips, little do you know, ladies, spiritually, you're in trouble, and I can prove it. And this just happened to be off the record, but just last night, the Most High directed me to go into the book in Proverbs chapter 26, verses 20 through 25. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. As charcoal to embers and as wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome person for kindling strife. So, people who tend to gossip, those envious, jealous, bitter, unhealed, trauma people, gossip is literally wood and kerosene to a campfire. If you really want to cause strife, gossip is a seed planted in the ground and watered with fertile soil to cause chaos. Do yourself a favor if you are guilty, such as I was, of gossiping. Do yourself a favor and try your best to avoid people who do that. They are no good for you. Okay? Let's just go to number 2. Ignoring red flags because you see potential growth in someone will cost you later. No rain, no flowers. If they've been given room for growth and they're not consistent on changing, leave them. I said what I said. Long gone are the days where you have friendships and relationships and business partnerships where you see, oh, this person has potential. I think no, 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 no. It's either in the sauce like Prego or it's not. Okay? Stop putting all your faith in people. Start putting your faith in the Most High. I said what I said. This is not the age or the time to rekindle relationships on potential. It's either they're about it or they're not. Okay? Number 3, failing to challenge someone with disagreement without them ignoring you or walking away is a major red flag of deflection and lack of accountability. Let me just go to number 4. After walking away from uncomfortable situations, they return to you as if nothing had happened without resolution of the previous issue. Run from these people. When I tell you the only person who you should avoid being in a relationship with at all costs are people who cannot take accountability, because that is a gateway for manipulation, okay? Where, again, they have a set of rules, right? Different for you than them. You got to run. Okay? Run. Don't walk, run. Let's go to number 5. One of the biggest signs of trauma is convincing people who hurt you to treat you well instead of walking away. The key is to know that you want and set boundaries that have to be met. I never thought I would have to make it a requirement for respect, but you'll be surprised by how many people can't respect you. It's not in them for reciprocity of respect because they don't respect themselves. Again, how people treat themselves and feel about themselves will reflect in how they treat you. Okay? If they cannot respect themselves or treat themselves to a high regard and a high esteem, why would you want to be around them? And you're not allowed or able to hold them accountable to see growth. You gotta go. You gotta let them go. Just pray for them and let them go. Okay? So, what does it look like over time for someone who constantly has dealt with trauma their entire life? What do you call that? It's to enduritize, becoming hardened with emotions, and it's used as a coping mechanism in response to prolonged pain and suffering. So, why is enduritizing as a woman harmful? Well, it stops you from embracing true masculinity that you're looking for from a partner, or it can stop you from getting the friendship that you deserve. Yes. So, what are signs of unhealed trauma that appear in life as triggers for women. Let's talk about it. Playing the victim role, even when given a chance to come out of it, you'd rather stay where it's comfortable. How many times, ladies, have you had those friend groups where there's always that one friend? Every time you see her or link up with her, it could be months since you've seen her last, or it could be months since you've spoken to her on the phone last. But every single time they talk to you, it's always the same problem. Maybe it's with the same man, or maybe it's not the same man, but it's the same kind of issue. There never seems to be any resolve. You can turn blue in the face trying to give this girl some type of advice because maybe you've been where she's been already, but you've healed and you've overcome that. So you don't have to deal with that problem anymore. These people, stay away from them too, because these people will try to suck up any life out of you. They prevent you from being proactive during your day. They waste your time. These are what I like to call assholes. Yes, ASKHOLE, asshole. They ask for advice, but they never listen to anything you have to say. They'll listen to the advice and they'll ask for the advice that you give them, but they do the exact opposite of what you say. Stop being friends with assholes. Okay? Let me go to number 2, because I'm getting hot. I'm getting hot. Negative self-talk. This is one of the biggest signs that I was a person who once suffered from unhealed trauma. I constantly would say things like, not today. I'm not dealing with this. Why me? When you start asking and victimizing yourself with negative self-talk, not only does your brain take that in, but do you know through negative self-talk through the brain, your body is getting signals of you being under stress? And this is a gateway of you being physically sick, where you manifest being spiritually sick to then being physically sick. Yes, I believe it or not, I used to be a very anxious person until I realized, well, what is the source of my anxiety? For me personally, the source of my anxiety came from not wanting to make people angry, wanting to bring peace where there was no peace, until I realized the only way for you to actually experience peace is to worry about yourself, not about everybody else, right? Well, let's keep going. What's some more signs of unhealed trauma? You're desperate for love from everyone else but yourself. When you keep ignoring the need to have your own sense of self-love, but you keep looking in for love in all the wrong places, big sign of trauma. Here we go with the 4th one, what I just mentioned. People pleasing. If I can make everyone happy, I'll be more tolerable or liked, even if I don't prioritize my own happiness. This is very dangerous. This right here is literally a magnet for narcissists to come in your life and wreak havoc. They go and sniff out blood like sharks in the sea for people like that. If you don't make yourself a priority and you are constantly a giver who does not know how or is not comfortable receiving, you, my friend, are a target for narcissists. Okay? Let's look at number 5. You easily attach yourself to people, leaving no space for alone time or for self-reflection. I don't care what anybody tells me. If you're not happy within your own company, with nobody else's company but yourself and God, you are running from something. You're running from something spiritually, emotionally, and you need to take care of it. Let's look at number 6. You're afraid to speak up for yourself. Freeze, which is a trauma response. When people ask you what's wrong, you're unable to communicate your feelings effectively. You ever think about your childhood and how, let's say, if you got in trouble, right? Let's say your mom or dad caught you doing something you're not supposed to do or told you not to do something and you did it anyway. The amount of fear, that feeling of fear that took over you when you tried to explain yourself. Think of that stuttering between the crying. Imagine still feeling like that at your tender age of you being however old you are right now. Some people still feel like that, where as a child, they were unable to communicate with you either out of fear of being held accountable, fear of being maybe victimized or ashamed, right? But as an adult, you would hope that the people around you, as well as yourself, would learn how to communicate. But that's the thing about trauma and triggers. At the age you experience certain trauma and triggers, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, it may keep you in that age. If I went through a very traumatic experience, let's say when I was 12, right? That's a good age. It's kind of like a rites of passage. You're kind of in the thick of it when it comes to puberty, or you're embracing it. You have a tainted self image because your body's changing, your mind's changing, and you go through something traumatic. Depending on your body and your mind at the state of that trauma, there may be things in life that trigger that response to keep you in that age of 12. You understand? So, this is why I feel it's also important to hold people accountable so that they don't necessarily feel bad for things they may not or they may be aware of, but that they can go seek counsel for things like that. It's okay to go to therapy. I promise you. I promise you. As a person who has friends that are therapists, it's okay. Let me go to number 7. Big signs of people with traumas and triggers. They're manipulative. They try to control situations and or people so you yourself, you don't have to change your behaviors, which also leads to 8, insecurities. They're insecure. They are constantly worrying about what everyone else is doing, saying, thinking, acting, when in reality, it's a reflection of you not being able to handle what you have going on to avoid the inevitable, whatever you think the inevitable is. Sometimes anxious people, guilty people who are triggered, right? They know that they've done things that are wrong that could piss people off, but they may throw rocks and hide hands. They may try to always appear likable, innocent, but really, they're really hurting themselves more than anybody else, because at the end of the day, people who are going through a phase of healing or have healed from their personal triggers and traumas, and then they come across unhealed people, they have the emotional intelligence and intelligence to move on from said people. While those people who are still dealing with their trauma, their triggers, are going in circles. They're not changing. They're going mad. There's no reasoning with someone who's crazy. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that as a person who actively tries to change for the better, to stay around people who don't, again, actively try to change their situation. That is insanity. That is crazy. Okay? And let's go to 9. Biggest people that have traumas, right? Big trait. You ignore your intuition. You have a lack of discernment. You've become so wrapped up in your mind, i.e., going crazy, that you ignore instinctual God given ability to recognize when things are going wrong and when to make moves. Mm hmm. Boy, oh boy. Houston, we've got a problem. So, what does enduritizing look like if the aspects that we spoke about spiral out of control? So, those 9 things we just spoke about, right? After time, and again, enduritizing is becoming hardened emotionally after taking on so much trauma for so long and it not being resolved. What does that look like when that person spirals as a woman? You become more masculine instead of embracing femininity. So, what are the key signs of a woman who embraces unhealed trauma, enduritizing, and starts to look and sound more masculine? Well, number one, we all know I don't need a man. Oh, child, I'm about to trigger somebody today. And I don't mean to laugh at people who say this, but I think it's funny when people say this, but you know just by the look on their face that they don't really mean it. They try to sound as if they have this false sense of security and togetherness that they start to convince themselves of this nonsense. So, what's number two of a woman appearing more masculine? Hyper independency, or constantly allowing yourself to feel like you need no help. You can be independent, but convincing yourself that's what you want when it's really not is unfair to yourself. Okay? It is more than okay to be a woman who is self sufficient. And by self sufficient, I don't mean she relies on just herself. I mean she just relies on God and herself. Let's not make this a thing where you don't need God, because yes, you do. And if you don't believe that, this may not be the channel for you. I'm just going to say it. But we've come into this age of hyper femininity with stupid phrases like toxic masculinity, which makes no sense. How could there possibly be masculinity that's toxic if it's true masculinity? But nobody talks about toxic femininity where you put down men and put yourself over men, right? Don't get me started. That's another episode. Let me know if you want to talk about that sometime down the line in the comment section or the live chat. Number three, you feel the need to compete with men. Anything you can do, I can do better. Whether it's sleeping around, I don't care if it's sleeping around, I don't care if it's sports, all of that. Why do you feel the need to compete with men if you're quote unquote healed? There's no reason for that. Number four, you're defensive. Again, lack of accountability. By deflecting, you're placing the blame on everyone but you. Number five, taking the lead, which is fine for a work or a group project, but not when it comes to interpersonal relationships. Ladies, a woman that is healed understands that in a relationship, there is a balance of power, respect, and admiration. Okay? The only time biblically I want to say it's okay for a man to take the lead is when the man is in control of a household, and that is your husband, because God has placed him specifically in that field. You are not going to be head of your household as a woman in a family. That is ridiculous, and y'all need to cut it out. You got to call a spade a spade. That is not what the good Lord intended. I'm sorry. Number 6, giving over receiving. Convincing yourself that it's easier to give for points or kudos over receiving, which makes you feel vulnerable, which you try to avoid. Some women don't understand this, that a woman who has embraced her femininity, who is healing from past triggers and traumas, who is becoming one with herself and God, do you know that you giving, constantly giving and never receiving, can come across as masculine? And masculine men may have a problem that you're trying to take their position and yours at the same time, which also leads to attracting feminine men. Some of you women are so hell bent on saying, oh, he has bent wrist tendencies and he wants to be a passenger princess, but you don't even allow real men to be real men when you do come across a real man. So now we're left with a culture of men who want to have the benefits of women because for so long, women have not held men accountable to the things that they've done. They haven't set boundaries, and they've taken on the role as the masculine. They tricked us. Well, Shayna, well, what is your response to all this then? What are you supposed to do? Stand on business and set some boundaries. That's what you're supposed to do. Some of you are so afraid of being single, you'll tolerate anything. That's not standing on business either. Learn to be alone if you can't get what you want or your needs met. You ever talk to God? Did you talk to God about what you're supposed? Did you talk to God? Did ya? Okay. Some of y'all only talk to God when things go wrong. That's none of my business. Let's go to number 8. Hiding emotions. Again, in attempts to hide vulnerability, you just make it harder for masculine men to embrace you for who you are and what you have to offer. Ladies, let's go to number 9. Taking pleasure in domination. You talk down to people, constantly coming across as condescending or callous. So we spoke about these 9 things that can make women come across as masculine. What are some things or some signs, right? What does a woman look like when she begins to heal and embrace her femininity? What does that look like? Let's take a look at that. Well, 1, she's compassionate. She is able to feel her emotions and get through it, not over it. Anytime a man tells you to get over it or you're overreacting, red flag. That is not a man in his full masculinity at all. He very much may have feminine tendencies that he needs to work on, because the only way to get over it as far as emotions is to feel your feelings and get through it. So you learn, you internalize, then you get over it. Okay? Anybody who makes you feel bad for having feelings or emotions about something or telling you you're wrong for how you're feeling, side eye them. You need to side eye them. For real. Number 2, allowing. A feminine woman allows things to happen, good or bad. She does not try to have too much control over people or circumstances. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. Okay? Number 3, she's nurturing. She doesn't mother men financially or baby them. She allows them to feel safe, respected, and appreciated, whether that be emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, but cooking never hurts either. I'm just going to say it. So, Let's go to the next one. 4. A woman with feminine energy has soothing energy. And this is for all types of relationships. A woman with soothing energy. You can be a man's peace, a friend's peace, a manager's peace, a child's peace. You are peace. But you have to be careful of people dumping their problems constantly on you, because people who bring peace, it attracts demons as much as it attracts other people who are able to heal. Me personally, I have some people who jokingly call me a therapist, right? Again, I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a licensed psychologist, psychiatrist, none of that, right? But for people who are going through turmoil, who are not doing the work themselves, you might find them burdening you with a whole bunch of problems to the point where they try to exhaust you. Those people are plants, are darts from Satan himself to try and wear the people of God out. It is okay to turn off your phone, your notifications, not go on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, not go on Netflix, none of that, and just take a nap. Okay? The world is draining. Stop letting people drain your battery. Number 5. An emotionally healed person or woman who embraces her femininity is vulnerable. She's a girly girl that's able to feel the feels unapologetically. She will cry unapologetically. She will feel her feelings unapologetically. Long gone are the days where women have to take on the morals of men and be looked at as women. Those are not healed women. Okay? Number 6, she's creative. A woman in her femininity, she is at peace with herself and being by herself while not feeling lonely. She has outlets, hobbies she can look forward to. She doesn't need to be up the arse of a man constantly, or the arse of her best friend constantly. She doesn't need reassurance. She doesn't need somebody to tell her what to do all the time, or to constantly get advice on how she should move in life. Okay? If she does, she goes to God. She doesn't go to people. Number 7, she's playful. A woman who is healed, who is embracing her femininity. She laughs. She has a personality. She may engage in a banter. This is a woman comfortable with herself. Number 8, she's open to receiving. She is able to receive compliments or gifts without feeling guilty, ashamed, or undeserving. This is a huge hurdle for women, especially when women were so afraid of men, calling them gold diggers, calling them opportunists, because feminine men who attract masculine women will say things like this. But when your respective partners know their roles and know how to play the role, you won't have a problem with this. And let's look at the last one as I close this out. She's gentle. A woman in her femininity. She understands that it is better to attract than to chase. What is for her is always for her if she's deserving and has earned it. There's no need to be jealous or envious. She encourages others. I just got chills. Folks, ladies, if there's anything that I want to say that is an automatic takeaway just from this cassette tape episode, I need you to understand the importance of loving yourself. As children, right? We grew up as sponges, absorbing everything around us. But when we suffer from unhealed trauma, unresolved trauma, and are constantly triggered in life, those triggers, if we don't understand the importance of dealing with triggers and trauma, as sponges, we then become Brillo pads if you allow it. And before I go, I just want to talk about some of the common triggers that we face. I may not have all the answers because, again, I'm not a licensed psychiatrist, psychologist, none of that. But here's some things that I've come across in my life through having certain friendships, being around certain circles, and doing research. There's about 4 common triggers for women, especially, that you may need to go ahead and dive deeper into why you react a certain way when you're triggered by such things. These are the top 4. Okay? The first one, being told what to do if you're triggered, like how I was, comes from the sense of you always feeling like you were controlled. This may stem from childhood. This may stem from PTSD in certain relationships. This might even come across in the workplace, business partnerships, all of that, siblings, all of that. Here's the second one, conflict. If your trigger is conflict, you may or may not be emotionally unstable, or you may have grown up in surroundings that felt explosive, where you may always had to have walked on eggshells and be the peacemaker, but really you may have felt being the peacemaker meant holding back your peace and making everybody else have peace, which again results in people pleasing. 3, if your trigger is being complimented, then you may or may not have been overly criticized. If you're not able to take compliments, you may not feel deserving, or at one point in your life, you didn't feel deserving of them at all because you were overly criticized. And 4, if your trigger is being vulnerable, you may or may not have one time in your life, whether it be through childhood, a previous relationship, past relationship, whatever, could have just been with your parents, whomever, a teacher, whomever. You may have been shamed or ridiculed, scrutinized. So, ladies, I think it is safe to say that, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible, your triggers are your responsibility to take care of. It is nobody's responsibility but your own to seek God, to seek the Most High, to seek counseling, or just spiritual counseling with an elder, whomever. Somebody who you know is maybe unbiased, has no ill intent. It's okay to ask for help, especially when it comes to emotions. Emotions are not the easiest thing to get through for everybody because there is such a thing called emotional intelligence that you'll be surprised a lot of people just don't have. If you'd like me to talk about emotional intelligence later down the line, let me know. Just a heads up, I am working on the promised bonus content for Soul Ties I can't let you know when that drops because there's always people listening. There's always a person of sabotaging spirits watching, lurking. So I can't let that be known. But look out. Anywho, men, I will see you either next week or the following week. Again, I can't say when I'm dropping what and when because people constantly prey on your downfall. And I don't let spirits know what I'm doing on my next move. But I will make my next move my best move. You heard? Anywho, I want to thank all of you for listening and sharing your time with me. Please go ahead and share this to whoever you feel like may need to hear this. Or if, hey, maybe you just want to keep this as reference and track how you feel like you're going amongst your life, increasing and enhancing your femininity and see how much maybe you've healed. This is always a good one for the archives. This is why I like separating this from regular content by slapping the cassette on there. You know what I'm saying? So, again, I appreciate you for sharing your time with me. You know how to reach me. If you need me, hit me up on Instagram. Okay, let me know how you felt about this cassette tape episode in the comments section or in the live chat. Either way, you know I'll be there. And for those of you watching the Super Bowl that may have missed this, the live anyway, listen, anybody who comes to this channel, whether you've been here from day 1, day 45, or the last day, you're never late. You're always on time. We love the replay gang. And when it comes to the betterment of your emotions, your spirit, your mind, all of that, this platform, this little, I wouldn't even call this a podcast, but this show really is to have an open, honest dialogue amongst family for you and for me. Okay? So don't ever feel like I'm attacking you. I just want to see us better. That's it. That's all. I love y'all, but y'all know this already. So take care. I will see you soon and look out for any updates on the community feed. Make sure you're subscribed and hit all notifications so you can get those notifications on the community feed. And I will talk and type with you later. Toodles!